of course, the bonds can swindle the equity investor too. Everything, inflation, I should say, swindles the bond investor too, and it swindles the person who keeps their cash under their mattress. It swindles almost everybody, and the problem, if you have a business that doesn't take any capital, and let's just say the dollar depreciates 90% or something, so things cost 10 times as much. If it doesn't take any capital, you can charge 10 times as much, and you've kept your relative position. But most businesses take some capital. If our utility business, just say that the dollar is worth 1/10, some years hence from now, we have to have 10 times the capital investment basically, and we get paid a return on that. But we have forced capital investment to essentially keep them in the same place. And I wrote an article that related to that, and I will tell you one famous story which you will all sympathize with, in that I wrote that story for Fortune, and when I finished it, it was about 7,000 words, and Fortune didn't like publishing 7,000 words, and they had my friend Carol Loomis explain that to me, knowing that I would pay more attention to her than anybody else, but being stubborn and male, I said, every word is precious, and they can either run it or not. So then they sent an editor, a very nice guy, out to Omaha, and this guy explained to me that it just wasn't right to use that many words. And I said, well, that's fine, but if you don't do it, I'll write it someplace else. Very disgusting behavior on my part. And then I sent it. It was beginning to bother me a little. So I sent it to my friend Meg Greenfield. And Meg was a great, great, great editor at the Washington Post. And we were very, very good friends. Wonderful woman. And Meg, who was tough as nails with most writers, but she was kind of nice. She didn't want to really hurt me too much. So I said, well, Meg, what do you think? And she said, well, Warren, she says, you don't have to tell everything you know in this article. and it made the point. And so I write that article shorter, and but I'd say more or less the same thing. No, you're better off if you really could have a totally stable unit of a monetary use for the next 100 years, it would be better for business and investors in general. Well, the businesses that will perform the best are the ones that require little capital investment to facilitate inflationary growth, and that have strong positions that allow them to increase prices with inflation. And we have a candy business, for example, and the value of the dollar since we bought that candy business has probably fallen at least 85%, I would say, 80 to 85%. And that candy business sells 75% more pounds of candy than it did when we bought it, but it has 10 times the revenues, and it doesn't take a lot more capital. So that kind of a business, any business that has enough freedom to price to offset inflation and doesn't require commensurate investment or huge investment to support it, will do well. Businesses like our utilities, which get in effect a bond-like return, but require, if you're going to build a generating plant and it costs twice as much per kilowatt hour of capacity, and all you're going to get is a fixed return, and yields on bonds go up perhaps dramatically if you get high inflation, is not going to do that well in an inflationary period, just because it has certain aspects of a bond-like investment And bonds generally are not going to do well in inflation. Charlie?
Well, but like our insurance operations, our capital-intensive railroad business is certainly one of the best railroads in the world, and our utility operations are certainly one of the best utility operations in the world. And so it isn't all bad to be up there world class in your main businesses.
Our railroad, the government's talked about building a high-speed rail system in California. I think they're talking about 800 miles of track. And their estimated cost was about $43 billion. And estimated costs on constructions of things like that go up dramatically, much more often than they get reduced even by a minor amount. And of course, we paid $43 billion, counting debt assumed, for a rail system which has 22,000 miles of main track and 6,000 plus locomotives and 13,000 bridges if you ever want to buy a bridge. So that the replacement value of that asset during inflationary already is huge, and it would grow dramatically. And the world, our country, will always need rail transportation. So it is a terrific asset to own. I'll just leave it at that. Inflation, Keynes said it many years ago that it's an invisible tax that only one man in a million really understands, and it's a tax on people that have had faith in their currency that the government's issued. The best protection, the best investment against inflation is to improve your own earning power, your own talents. Very few people maximize their talents, and if you increase your talents, they can't tax it while you're doing it. They can't take it away from you. So if you become more useful in your activities, your profession, doctor, lawyer, whatever it may be, that is the best protection against a currency that might decline at a rapid rate. And the best investment, passive investment, I think, is a good business. If you own an interest in a good business, you're very likely to maintain purchasing power no matter what happens to the currency. But it's interesting. In the United States, the value of the dollar since I was born has declined by 94% to 6 cents. So inflation is a very cruel tax on people who believe in fixed dollars, but things can work out pretty well even during inflationary times. I mean, if somebody told me when I was born, that the dollar bill is going to go to 6 cents, I might have said, let me go back. I'm not interested in emerging into that kind of a world. But actually, it's worked out pretty well, so I have no complaints.